Welcome back, everyone. Today, first of all, is hopefully our last Zoom class meeting. So I will see you all on Wednesday in the classroom, Moore 302. Really excited. Also, just a reminder, I have to end class about a little more than 15 minutes early today to attend a funeral. But the focus of today is going to be taking a look at your stories and talking about those and giving some feedback. And it seems like a few of you are still working on your stories, so we can also brainstorm and address issues there. And just to foreshadow, during the last part of the course, which will start likely on Wednesday, we'll be continuing to put stories together, but we'll kind of open up the topic space to any type of data set that you're interested in. So we'll kind of spend every class, first of all, discussing any stories that were submitted, debugging, and then brainstorming ideas. So on Wednesday, we'll probably mostly brainstorm ideas, but then after that, everyone is going to get out of sync. And so we'll have kind of up to three components to every class meeting from then on. Okay. Yes, Akina.
Yeah, you mentioned that you're opening up like the potential topics. Is the formatting also open, or are we limited to using PyCharm and stuff?
You mean collaboratory? So PyCharm is also great. You're definitely allowed to use PyCharm if you want, but as long as you share your code. So I want you to do the analyses yourself, and ideally in kind of shareable notebooks. So so I wanted to talk about your and Alex's story. Like I saw you kind of presented it as like a screencast of scrolling through your notebook. You don't have to use that format for storytelling. You can tell your story in something more similar to your previous stories, where you like screenshot your graphics or save out your graphics, put it in a slideshow or something like that. But you just have to make like the analyses and figures that you do make, at least the like data display figures, should be made by you, as opposed to found in a secondary source. Fanri, yeah.
Yeah, I just want to double check. So for the submission of this homework, so we will have a README file, the code, and also like the graphs in Colab, and also the video. We download them from the websites, and then we uploaded it again in the file.
So I can walk through the like data or the project submission process. That might be helpful. So let me share my screen. Okay. Okay, so first you want to navigate to your fork of the class repository. If you don't have one, then you'll click the fork button to make one. And then replace Context Lab with your GitHub username. Okay. The first thing you do is fetch the changes from the class repository by pressing the Fetch Upstream button. Okay, so now my repository is synced up. And then you'll go to the data stories folder. And for this particular assignment, you want to navigate to VT-DOH for Vermont Department of Health. And then you can, I really liked your group name, by the way, the AWs. That was clever. But so you can either put your project in its own folder if you want to make a clever group name, or you can just like upload your submission as 2 files. One is a notebook file and one is a README file. So a notebook file is like the thing you make in Colab. And then when you save it to GitHub, you want to save it in the data stories /VT-DOH folder. And you can make a group folder as well. And then your README file should have the same name, but instead of IPYNB as the extension, it should have MD for Markdown as the extension. So, and that's kind of a README file with a link to your story video, which will be a YouTube link. So you want to upload it to YouTube. And then—
So the video we just uploaded to YouTube and put the link in the README file. I remember.
Yeah, so I can show you the, oh yeah, Allison is also an AW, yeah. I don't think there's any more. Yeah, yes, Emily.
You press fetch upstream when you're trying to sync it with the current version of the class notebook, correct?
Yes.
So when I do that, because I haven't done it like recently, I guess, it says open pull request. And then it has like a title and a comment. Do I do something there? Is that the right thing?
Let's check out your fork in a sec.
Okay.
But that's, yeah, let's explore that. But the short answer is that's different, but we can get into it. Okay, so this is, I guess, an example of a README file. So it's got, and if you want a template, if you go to the data stories /demo folder, that has like a sample README file and demo notebook. So the way it's organized, you can code it up right in GitHub if you want. And you use like the kind of # or hash symbol to denote a heading. And then you've got like different sections. So project information, and then it in the demo file, it says like, what do you put in each section? So you'll have like a, what's the name of the project, who contributed to it. Then you've got an overview section, which kind of describes what the project is about. A link to the data set, how to run the code, which will probably just be open up the notebook and press run all, but some projects have more complicated setup instructions. Also under the overview section, you'll want to include a link to the YouTube video. And then if you want to, like if your project is amenable to like having other people contribute to it, or if there are like interesting ways that other people could follow up in your project, you can have a contributing section. And then finally, if the project builds off of someone else's project, or if others, from like, it could be someone else from the class, could be a comment someone made, it could be some blog post you saw on the internet, anyone else who contributed to the project that's not like a student in the class and explicitly an author on the project, you want to acknowledge their contributions in the last section. So, yeah, so Akia and Alex had like a fun note about Akia's boyfriend helped with debugging. So that's a perfect use of the acknowledgement section there.
And also the submitting part, he did that.
Okay. Well, thank you to Robert. Cool. Yeah, so cool. Does that make sense? So your submission is two files. And you want to add those files by going to like either create new file or upload new file. So if I wanted to create a new file under like my group, let's say my group name is like Vermont heart stuff. And then I wanted to make a README file like jeremy.md. And then I could add stuff here. Not necessarily in that order, but you can follow the demo template and then commit new file with the green button here. But I'm not going to add this file because it's just junk. And then when you create your notebook, which you'll do in Collab, you want to save that using the like collaboratory save dialog. So, you'll go to File, save a copy in GitHub, and then navigate to the Storytelling with Data repository. In this drop-down menu that will eventually come up, and then you want to save it as like data stories. Oops. Let me pull it up. There we go. It is not, oh, I don't know why it's not letting me edit this, probably because there's no content. I have no idea. My keyboard's not responding. Well, anyways, do you know how to save? I could debug that if that's necessary, but does that make sense?
Yes, I just wonder, like here, when we save, we just save it to the context, to the storytelling with data under our name.
Yes, that's
And
right.
how would that appear in the data stories?
Yeah, so once you've added once you've modified your fork, then you say new pull request. I didn't make any changes, so there's nothing for me to add here. But if you had added your project files, then there'd be a bunch of green button. There'd be like a green button, and you just follow the green button. So you press like make pull request, send pull request, etc. And then eventually you run out of green buttons, and then stop pressing stuff, and then that will make a pull request appear on my screen, and then I can merge it in. So you can't add it. So you're like submitting the assignment is just making a pull request. And then I actually add it to the class repository. So that adds like a layer of safety between, I mean, like let's say your change was to delete all the content of the class repository. I wouldn't want to make that change public because then we wouldn't have any class materials anymore. So I wouldn't accept your change. But submitting your assignment is just, you submit a pull request. Allison and then Kareem.
Can I ask, I was asking
okay.
about the pull request.
Yeah, sure.
So like if I'm on so do I need to press fetch upstream before I post anything, or I just do add to file?
Can you remind me of your username, your GitHub username?
It's Emily app.
Oh,
you
actually,
I can share my screen quickly if that would help, like with what my question is, or
Emily app, and then what?
2, and the E and the A are capital, though.
Okay. You may have to share a screen. Let's see. Yes, you'll have to share your screen, it looks
Okay.
like. Okay, so I'll stop sharing.
Okay. So like I thought that you showed yourself going to this fetch upstream area.
Yep, so oops, sorry. Yes, so you want to first press this like the kind of circles button,
Mhm.
and then
So it brings up this window for me, open pull request.
yes, so you have a merge conflict. So
Mhm.
that's exciting. Okay, so the easiest way for you to resolve that is to go to settings,
Okay.
then collaborators, and then
Well,
well, you can stop screen sharing. You'll type your password and then add me as a collaborator.
okay.
I'll send my username here. It just Jeremy Manning, all lowercase, one word, and I can help you resolve that.
Okay.
That's kind of a more advanced GitHub thing that
Okay. So then I
Yeah.
add it's Jeremy Manning, all over.
and I need, yeah, and you should give me write access.
I just
So there
invited.
should be,
I
okay.
think
So
if
let
it
me,
looks like the right thing. Yeah.
yep, that looks right. Okay, so I can show you, oops.
Share my screen again, or you think I will?
Well, I can share, I'll share my screen and show, because now I can edit your project here.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, so it'll give me a problem. We'll open a pull request. Can't automatically merge. Okay. So let's see what happens. The problems are, oh, nice. Interesting. So what did you change here? Okay, so this interesting. Okay, so this okay. So you changed a few of the files that were like built into the course. So
By downloading it, like I'm not supposed to download it, I guess.
you can download it, but it looks like you might have edited those files and then checked in your changes. So
Sorry about that. I did not realize it was
no
doing it.
worries. Okay, so I'll have to resolve that after class because it'll
Okay.
take a little while. But I can take care of that.
Sorry about that.
No worries. So okay, and yeah, so looks like there's a bunch of stuff here.
I don't even know how this happened. I guess I just opened the slides and somehow did
Okay.
something. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it could just be you like opened a file and then saved it, and then all that was changed could have been like the last opened date.
Mhm.
But then since it's a binary file, GitHub doesn't handle that well.
Okay.
It like doesn't know how to handle binary files well, and so even if most of the file is the same, all it knows is it exactly the same or not exactly the same
Okay.
with a binary file. So any of these files where it says like binary file not shown, it's because GitHub doesn't deal with those well. But that's fine. So all that needs to happen is to like revert those changes. But that's fine.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so I will update your fork, and then you'll be able to fetch upstream. And then when you, oh, what's this? Oh, great, right. And then you want to add your files to the data stories VTDOH folder, which it looks like you
How to add
created
it?
this folder. How do you add it? So,
Yes.
well, so if the file is in collaboratory, then you save, then you do like save notebook on GitHub. That adds a collaboratory notebook. And then if it's a README file, you can just create it, like you can either upload it, so you can like drag and drop something from your computer, or you can create it right from, you know, right from here by typing stuff. And then if you have like a data file, you probably want to just upload that.
Thank you. Oh, could you please show us where is like the demo for the README file? Because I saw like there are some questions like we need to answer, but I don't have like the demo file.
Yeah, so it's it's under I don't know why my computer's acting funny today. Okay. So it's under data stories and then demo. Also, if you go to the assignment instructions, oops, right here. Okay, so assignment 4, it says like you could use this demo project. That's a link to the demo repository. Okay. Allison, I see you have a question too.
Yeah, sorry. 2 things. I guess the first is, are there 2 different versions of what the questions are? Because when Emily and I were doing it last night, the questions she answered were different. Like, I mean, same idea, but like some of the wording of the questions is a little different. Are there 2 versions, and which one's the right one? Emily, do you know where you got the questions from? Because when I was looking at them this morning, they look different than what he's showing now.
On the document.
Oh, so this is the assignment instructions. There's also a README file, which looks different. So if you go to the demo project README file, this is going to be slightly different stuff in here. Maybe that's the difference you're referring to.
Emily, do you know?
There's stuff, and there's different things in the collab notebook that's different than this thing, but that's like.
Oh yeah, so there will be different things you put in the in your code notebook than you do in the README file. But that's
okay. So it's supposed to be different questions. I mean, they're like
yes. Yeah, so you can think about it as like the README file is like a high level overview of like how do you actually run the analyses and download the data sets and like get access to the code. Okay. So like, and what's the project about? And then the notebook is like a more in-depth walkthrough of like, okay, you can, if the questions are the same, you can reuse the same text. So you don't have to like reword the same question multiple times, but you want to have the notebook be a self-contained shareable thing. And then the README file is like a summary version that's like, you know, the doc, like you could share just the README file with someone also, and then they wouldn't have your code unless they clicked on the here's my code link. But it would be like a quicker thing that you could share.
Okay, cool. I have 2 more questions. The first is, how does the grading for this project work? Like, because I mean, there's like the writing for the README, which takes a lot of time. There's the writing on the notebook itself, and the video. So are you considering all of
Yeah.
those, or is the writing more of a self-reflection for us?
So the main grade for all the stories is the video, but the README stuff is more like organizing. So what you want is like the minimum viable information that someone would need to reproduce all the analyses in your story. So like, it doesn't need to be like a super long, many page thing, like a sentence or a paragraph or like a bulleted list. Those are fine ways to answer these questions. Like, you know, so what was your main question? That can be relatively short because your story is going to dig into that. But you just want, it could just be like the title of your story or something like that. You don't have to fully dig into the background. That happens in the story itself. And similarly, like, you know, you can describe at a high level. So like in a few words, one sentence, what's your data set and how do you download it? You don't need to like write an essay on what the data set means. That'll happen in your story, etc.
Okay.
And then if there's like there are a few questions that are common between the notebook part and the README file. You can just copy and paste the same answer if that fits, or you can like tweak it slightly between those two files if that works better in context. But yeah, it's just like the point here is like, you know, you want to practice good like project management skills in putting the project together, and like how do you share a project, how do you document your code and what you did, and these are good practices for doing that. And then the main thing is your story, which is like the result of all these things. So you kind of, it's like, you could think of the README and the notebook are like prerequisites for getting to your story, but then the story is like the main product at the end.
Gotcha. Okay. Another question I had was like, do we have to upload the video to YouTube? Because I guess, to be honest, I don't really want this video to be accessed outside of the class. So
okay, so if you don't want it to be, yeah, so you can make a first of all, you can make a YouTube video private.
Okay.
So if you want to just have it be accessed by the class, you could just post a link in Slack and then yeah, and then just tell me that you don't want it to be accessed. Although this story, like the point of I guess this project is to share it with the like Department of Health folks. So
yeah,
it'd be great if we could share it with them, because otherwise they won't like that, you know, the point of the project is kind of missed. But yeah, I don't, if you're concerned about like, you know, privacy issues for you or something like that for your story, then like in the past, I've had students analyze like their own Fitbit data or like their own like Apple Watch data or some things like that. So that you might not want to like post that stuff publicly, and that's fine. It needs to be like accessible to the class. So that might like constrain what sorts of data sets you want to explore or stories you want to tell. But you know, there are some cases where you don't have to share it publicly. If you're not comfortable sharing it publicly, then you don't have to.
I think honestly, it was more the first two videos because off the record, some of the practices we used for making the videos were not the most copyright sound. So I don't really want those on there because I didn't realize it at the time.
Oh yeah.
So that's why I don't want them with my name online.
Got it. Okay. Could you send me a Slack message? I can, you know, remove the links to those videos from the class GitHub page, and then yeah, but that's totally fine.
Okay, thanks.
Frank, did you have a question?
It's sort of a follow-up question. Last night I also tried to upload my videos without posting it online to be public for everyone, and I end up, I don't know if I called it mistakenly, had my video directly placed in the README file. I don't know, like that's like problematic, occupying too much space of the repository. That kind of
Yes,
matters.
Yeah, I saw that. It does matter because it did it mess up your did it mess anything up for you? Like if it's greater than I think 100 megabytes or something, then it can cause problems.
I
I
don't
don't know
know.
if that happened.
Seems like it's playing fine for
Oh,
everyone.
it's okay. So it can corrupt the repository if you try to upload a file that's too big.
Mhm.
So that's kind of a pain to deal with if you've like committed a file that's too big. If the file isn't bigger than 100 megabytes, then there's no harm done from like committing a file, and then it shouldn't be, if you don't want it to be in that particular place, then we can move it around. So, and we can do that before we merge in the changes to the class repository. So if you don't want your video on YouTube, you can share it as a in the Your Stories channel. That's fine. But yeah.
I see.
Okay, so yeah, any other questions about submitting the assignments? Okay, so the only video that I have seen so far is Alex and Akia's video. So I thought we could at least discuss that video. Maybe if others want to upload their videos, we can spend some time on Wednesday's class discussing other stories. And then I can also, I don't want to take too many days to do class discussions of the stories, given that we're nearing the end of the class, and I want to make sure we have time for the last pieces. But as you upload your stories, I can provide written feedback and all that, and then others from the class can always weigh in also on Slack, etc. Yes, Allison.
I was wondering if you could, I don't know if you kind of said this in the beginning, but if you could kind of outline like how the rest of the class is and how we should budget the timing, because I can just say from my experience, basically what's happened is every time for these projects, I've stayed up extremely late the night of working on them. Like the whole weekend is me working on it. And if there's 3 more, I think I can do a better job managing my time with it. So I want to know if you had any suggestions.
Yeah, so so in the last part of the class, there are 3 more stories, and so the timeline is up to you. So you could submit them all on the last day, you could submit them all on the first day, you could submit, it could be anything. And you can work in groups of any size, including the entire class, which sometimes happens. So if there's the like formal description of what happens in the second part of the class is on the like course outline, but in brief, every day we'll like have up to 3 segments of class, and usually we won't do all of them because they won't be relevant. But the first segment is like going over any stories that were submitted prior to, or like after the last class and before the current class. So we'll like discuss those stories. Second, we'll brainstorm new story ideas. So if people want to pitch stories to other students or like workshop an idea, we'll leave time for that. And then finally, we'll do debugging. So if it's like you're working on a story yourself or with a group, and there's some plot you want to make or analysis you want to do or a data set you want to like figure out or wrangle, then we'll spend class time on that too. And we'll basically go in that order, like discussing old stories. So so on Wednesday, there's not going to be any stories from part 2 of the class to discuss because it'll be the first day of part 2. But potentially as soon as Friday, there might be, we'll see.
Then in terms of the 3 story ideas, do they need to all be about health, or like how similar are they allowed to be?
They can be they can be as similar as you want, but they can be about anything. So any type of data driven topic. So we looked a few classes ago, we looked at the like awesome data sets repository with all kinds of different data sets. That is one source of data. You can also Google for different data sets on different topics. It's totally open-ended. And you can, if you want ideas for what people have done in the past, the data stories folder has like stories from previous years. So they're about all kinds of things. Airplane delays, board games, COVID-19. That was a favorite in recent years. Like there was like a college admissions scandal related to sports. Maybe last year, I think it was. And so that was like a story topic people looked at. Sports teams data. The like Dartmouth women's basketball coach audited this class a few years ago. And so he like analyzed women's basketball data from Dartmouth and other college teams. So that was cool. Last year we had one of the groups of students did a story on The Bachelor, like the TV show, like comparing colleges to each other, comparing like different languages to each other, like how many languages do people speak? Like if you have like a new immigrant to a country, like how many generations does their like kind of their language last if the country they immigrate to has like a different majority language or their community speaks a different language. So that was like an interesting topic. Lots of different things have been explored. And if you find one of the stories interesting from a previous year, you can just go right to their code and build off of what they've done. And that's totally fun.
So
or you can start a new topic.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. So like, let's say, I guess the reason I was asking was because we have 3 videos, like, let's say if you wanted to, could you use the same data, like the Vermont health data for 3 more videos if you wanted to, or does every video need to be from a different data source?
Nope. If you wanted to keep digging into those data sets, you could.
Okay. I guess any other like, I don't know, restraints or something we should just be aware of when picking the topic?
No, it's supposed to be free form, so and driven by your interest. So if there's some type of data you want to learn how to work with, we can, that's something we can address during like the debugging or workshopping sessions. Fawn-Marie, you've mentioned like natural language processing, wanting to learn more about that. So I'm happy to, dig into some tools for natural language processing. If you want to learn about like web scraping, whatever you're excited about, we can do that.
And then in terms of when everything is due, so when are all of like these final projects due / like when is our, like, if you will, final exam or last day everything's due?
Yeah, so there's no final exam. The last the last day you can so the last day we can discuss things is going to be like before the last class meeting, which I think is March 8th. So March 7th will be our last class. But then I believe the final exam period ends March 15th. So I'll have to verify this, but I need about a day in advance of whatever the registrar's deadline is to like finish the grading. So probably the end of the day, March 15th will be the deadline. Like, you know, you're welcome to hand in stuff earlier. But that'll probably be like the last possible date that I could accept work and still get in your grade on time. But I'll verify that.
And then as we like turn in the stories, will we get feedback as we go? So we'll have a sense of like how we can improve.
Yeah, so that'll be during the discuss the stories that have been handed in section. So everyone will watch each other's stories, just like we've done with the stories up till now. And, you know, we'll discuss story, you know, so some days we might have 0 stories, some days we might have 3 or 4 or 1. We'll just discuss whatever's been submitted, like, you know, just prior to the current class. And then, you know, I'll type up my feedback like usual. And, you know, I'll post it on Slack like usual. And then that's, yeah, so it'll be very similar to the other stories.
So we'll get grades too. It won't just be comments. Like before.
Yes, yeah. So you'll get, yes, it's tricky because there's no good way in. Yeah, I'm happy to give feedback on grades. The Canvas won't treat it exactly accurately because the way that the grading works for the second part of the class is that your best assignment counts the most, your second best assignment counts the second most, and the third best counts the third most. There's no way on Canvas to like,
with the
as far as I know, to do like incorporate those rules, but I can at least, I'm happy to like divide out the, you know, the last part of the course into 3 assignments so that you know what grades you get, and then you can just figure it out by hand if you wanted, or you can approximate by just averaging those 3, but it'll be slightly higher than what you calculate.
Gotcha. Cool, thank you.
Sure.
Oh wait, actually one more question.
Okay.
You said, sorry, you said that once the final exam period starts, can we not ask you further questions on the assignments? Or like, you can have office hours or anything during that time?
No, I'll still be around. Yep. I'll probably, yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. And I mean, students have even in past years, like, you know, since many of you are seniors, in the past, like, you know, if students are looking for like data science type jobs, like I've helped students with like the interview process, and I'm happy to do that with you all. So if you're like looking to put a portfolio together, you know, you obviously won't get graded on it for my class, but I'm happy to help connect you with people, or like I have lots of collaborators at, you know, the Fang companies, if you've heard of those, or other kind of computery places. And then you know, I can help with preparing for interviews and that sort of thing. So, you know, I really am pretty much always on Slack. And so you know, I'm happy to have you all check in after the course ends. In that, it of course includes while the class is still going on, which will be, you know, before you hand in your stories. But
Thank you.
So I'm looking at the time here. I have to unfortunately get going. So I guess we'll talk about your stories on Wednesday. Maybe we'll start with that on Wednesday when we meet in room 302. And And then once we're done going through those stories, whoever submitted stuff by then, we will transition to part 2 of the class. Emily, did you have one last question?
I had a super quick question. Will you be able to like send me a Slack message once my GitHub is up to date and I can post again?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
I'll do that.
Yeah, no rush
After
to do it.
I'll do that after the funeral. Yep.
Yeah, no rush. I just
Okay.
wanted to know like when you do it so I'm able to, but it can be tomorrow even, whenever is good for you.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Yes. And Allison asked for Wednesday, should you watch the submitted videos? That would be great. So yeah, so we'll start by discussing those videos. And we'll go from there. All right. Bye, everyone.